book.
We've got our friend Kash Patel with us now, former DOD Chief of Staff, Deputy Assistant to President Trump, and a Trump Media Board member. Kash, good of you to join us, man. How are you?
I'm great, Bucks. Glad to be with you on your show. Love it.
So I know, thank you, sir. So I know you've got something of an exclusive for us. I need you to lay out, because this goes to trying to find the ultimate truth of just what the deep state did in the Russia collusion mess under Trump, the fight over getting to that truth. Tell everybody what you know, what's at stake here, and what's happening.
Yeah, thanks so much. And, Buck, as you know, President Trump's platform was transparency. And part of that transparency comes in the form of, providing the American public with information that should never have been classified or kept from them in the first place. And what he did was, on his way out of the White House, he declassified, made available to every American citizen in the world, large volumes of information relating not just to Russiagate, but to national security matters, to the Ukraine impeachment, to his impeachment 1, impeachment 2, all things that deep staters, as you know, Buck, in government go in there and get their hands on and classify because they don't want the truth to get out because it's going to make President Trump look good because he always supported the truth and the facts. And that's what we have here is a whole slew of documents and information that President Trump wanted to put out, and the deep staters came in and got their hands on. And here's the biggest part. They violated an order from the President of the United States to withhold this information, and now it's in a bureaucratic gymnastic dogfight between Congress and records people.
Yeah, so tell us what happened. So this is when Trump is still in office. He's a sitting president. He is supposed to be the ultimate declassification authority and can even real time declassify. I remember this when I was in the CIA. If the president says, you know what, I'm going to declassify this, he basically can. I mean, there's some process sometimes that people will go through, but if the president wants to go on TV and say, I'm declassifying this, nobody can override him. So what's the problem? I mean, if a president wants people to have information that falls under the executive branch, how does he get stopped, and who stopped President Trump from releasing this information, and where does it stand right now in the process of getting out there so we can sit here and talk about it?
That's exactly right. The president is the ultimate, as we say, declassification authority. He can go on TV, he can write an article, and he can say it's declassified. And while President Trump was still president of the United States, he was going through reams of volumes of information with his teams and said, this is what the American people should see. And he literally said, all of this is declassified. Then what happens is, Buck, from the true deep staters that are in there who always block President Trump's agenda, and especially on national security matters, came in and said, no, we're going to keep this. We're going to slow roll this. We're not going to release it. And ultimately, President Trump left office. They basically ran out the clock on him and then submitted the records to the holding agency. And they said, oh, these records still have classification markings on them. You and I, Buck, both know that's meaningless if the commander-in-chief declassified them. But the White House counsel's office, I believe, is largely to blame here under President Trump because they didn't take the commander-in-chief's guidance and orders on declassification. And the American public suffers. What is there to hide from the American public if it involves the truth? I mean, and that's the essence of what we're doing here. And nobody's ever talked about this in the media, so I'm grateful for the opportunity to get this out there. But the bigger story is, we got to put pressure on the government bureaucrats to release this information so the American public can read for themselves instead of having it fed to them falsely and in piecemeal and leaked like we're so used to, whether it's Russiagate or Ukrainegate or, January 6th or what have you. And the American people have that right. We're hoping to get this information out soon.
Well, our audience, Kash, thanks for coming on and sharing that. Millions of people are hearing it right now. I'll look forward to seeing it in a small little, subheading in the New York Times on the 18th page after they put this on the front page, when the details come out. Like I'm sure you saw, too, the story about, hey, there's 7 hours missing of call logs on the day of January 6th. And it was like, oh, my God, this is Watergate on steroids. And it's the front page and everything else. And they're like, oh, actually, that's not true. And a huge percentage of the American public doesn't ever see the correction. How frustrating was that working in the Trump White House? Because I've always said this, and I'm curious what you think of this analogy. If the media were just incompetent, every now and then they would have a Trump story that was incredibly favorable to Trump that wasn't true, right? You'd pick up the New York Times, and it would be like, hey, Trump saved 3 puppies from drowning in the Potomac River. And then it comes out, oh, it didn't actually happen, but, they were just incompetent, and the story got on the front page. Every single story that was proven to be false about Donald Trump was negative, right? So it's not even incompetence. It's such an incredible bias. What was that experience like serving in that administration and seeing that happen time after time?
Buck, this is why you have the best radio show in the country, because you phrased it better than I ever could. It is extremely frustrating, and it's not just incompetence. I take it one level further when I talk about it to journalists. It's disinformation. It's feeding the American public intentionally false information and lies to advance a political narrative that jeopardizes American national security interests, be it the Afghanistan withdrawal, be it now the Hunter Biden laptop story, which we all knew to be true, but was completely reported as false. And here's the problem. The American public, most of them don't catch up to it. Your viewers do because they care and they're dialed in. But months and months and months and years of information was peddled out by the likes of Adam Schiff and the New York Times and the Washington Post, whether it's Russiagate, Hunter Biden laptop, Afghan withdrawal, January 6th. And the record is corrected, as you noted, in some footnote buried on page 18 of a story 2 years later. The problem is that disinformation politicizes the national security apparatus of the United States. And what do you have? You have a Joe Biden as president as a result. You have a border catastrophe. You have an opioid crisis. And you have Russia and China on the rise and America on the decrease. And that is the ultimate politicization of the national security apparatus. That's what I faced. That's what I fought. And that's what we're continuing to fight. We're not gonna sit here and take a knee because President Trump isn't in office right now.
We're speaking to Kash Patel, former DOD chief of staff over at the Pentagon, deputy assistant to President Trump in the White House. And Kash, there's so much I could follow up with on Clay's question there just a second ago, but I did want to ask you, having been, I was obviously inside the belly of the beast in some way at the CIA. You were at the Pentagon and the White House. When you see who they are defending and elevating as the White House disinformation czar, does this go even beyond? I call her Soviet Mary Poppins. Does this go even beyond what you thought was possible for the deep staters?
Unfortunately, they've proven me wrong. It doesn't go beyond what I even thought was possible, because now you have the Secretary of Homeland Security going on national TV and before Congress and saying, I can't comment on the Steele dossier and the fact that it was disinformation, but I'm going to place the head of the Ministry of Truth, a lady who said the Steele dossier was verified information that should still be relied on, and she said that in 2020 and 2021. This is a type of disinformation. This is a type of deep state that has corrupted American politics, and this is why no one trusts our national security program anymore, and why it's on the rapid decline. And to stand up a quote-unquote Ministry of Truth, or whatever you want to call it, the Disinformation Bureau, and they come out and they say, we're not going to monitor American conversations. But you and I both know they mean they're going to monitor American conversations. It just so happens if you're with President Trump or a conservative, your conversations are getting monitored and the rest are not.
Kash, do we have any update or what you expect to see going forward with the Durham probe itself? Obviously, as it continues to progress, what are you hearing? What do you expect to see? What should our listeners know as it relates to that?
Yeah, look, I'm a little biased here as a chief investigator for Russiagate during Chairman Nunes and a former federal prosecutor. I've been following Durham with great detail, and I put out Durham Watch on Truth Social under @Kash every day. And what we've seen with the latest round of Durham prosecutions and filings is that the Clinton criminal cartel has come in and admitted to breaking federal campaign finance law by utilizing campaign dollars to hire Fusion GPS and Christopher Steele to pump disinformation into the FBI and fraudulently surveil a presidential candidate of the United States. But that's not all. We learned that their lawyers were pumping tens of millions of dollars into the media as well to send this disinformation out far and wide so that they could take down President Trump, at that time Candidate Trump, and later President Trump. So what John Durham has smartly done in federal pleadings almost every day for the last 2 weeks is outline the joint venture conspiracy between the likes of Fusion GPS, Sussman, Elias, Christopher Steele, and the folks at the Clinton campaign, Podesta, Mook, Jake Sullivan, the current national security advisor, and said, you guys are all targets of my investigation. and we're going to take your own documents and your own emails and use them against you. And he just won a big pleading in court yesterday that said the judge is going to allow him to use classified and declassified information that was being withheld from the United States government in the prosecution's case, and that's going to be made public during the trial. And Clinton World, I can tell you for sure, is absolutely scared and running, and they are hoping Michael Sussman takes a plea, but I'm hoping he doesn't because there's more than just one co-conspirator to this criminal conspiracy.
You can follow Kash's work at fightwithkash.com or on Truth Social at KASH. It's not cash like the money, it's KASH. Kash, my friend, good to have you on, man. Thanks for hanging with me and Clay.
Thanks so much. Have a great weekend, guys.
Take care.